What a wonderful opportunity that we have to worship God together. And I just would like to say that, Brother Horace, I appreciate so much your willingness to always use your talents in any way that you can. And if we will all take the example that Brother Horace has set before us, this church is going to be strong for years and years to come. We certainly appreciate. I was there. That's pretty. We'll get T-shirts made if that's what we do. I do appreciate those who have created a new pulpit here. Tonight is our Vacation Bible School, and it's been a while coming. It's been advertised. It's been prepared for, and now it's here. And now there's one thing for us left to do, and that is to be here, to support, to work, to learn, to encourage one another. And we hope that for the next 4 nights that you are prepared as a congregation here at Sycamore to be here, to bring friends, to invite, continue to invite. We're going to have classes for every age, and we're looking forward to that. Looking forward to the smiles and the enthusiasm of the children, because you know that's the smiles and the enthusiasm that you and I ought to have this very morning. The looks on their faces should be the looks on our faces. The wonder that is in their hearts should be the wonder that is in our hearts. Have we lost that? Let's get it back. It doesn't mean it's gone forever. It means that we just need to rekindle. And a Vacation Bible School is much like a gospel meeting in that it is meant to revive us, to remembering who we are, remember who we belong to, remember what our duty and our privilege is to our Father in heaven. This morning I want to share a lesson with you entitled Transforming to Have a Different Spirit. As we read just a minute ago from Numbers chapter 14, they're reading in verse 24, "But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, and has followed me fully, I will bring him to the land where he went, and his descendants shall inherit it." You ever been called different? And when you were, was it a compliment or was it something else? I can truly tell you, I've been called different a lot. And I'm just going to say it was complimentary. God paid a great compliment to Caleb by noting that he had a different spirit. He had a different spirit. Different from what? And we'll see as we go through today. He had a spirit that was different from others. A couple of Wednesday nights ago, we had a devotional based on David, who was a man after God's own heart. Yet David was weak and sinful just like all other men. The difference was the way that he thought. He tried to think like God. He revered God in a way that others didn't do. Caleb had a different spirit because Caleb looked at life differently. He looked at God differently. He trusted differently. And you know, we ought to strive to have a different spirit like that of Caleb. We've been talking about transformation. We need to have that different spirit, much like what Caleb had. What caused God to pay this high compliment to Caleb? Turn with me to Numbers 13. In Numbers 13, the Lord spoke to Moses and told Moses, I want you to send one man from each tribe over into the land of Canaan. And I wanted them to spy out the land. Now, when we think of spying out, we think of doing some covert operation. And that was certainly done from time to time in the Scriptures. But I think God sent these men on a different mission. Look with me then. The first 16 verses, we see the names of the men and the tribes they came from. And verse 17, then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up this way into the south and go up to the mountains and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests or there are not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. The Lord said, go into the land of Canaan and see if the people are strong or weak, few or many. Is it good or bad? He wasn't telling them to go so that they could write a report so that they could map out for Moses what the land was like, so that they could tell the Lord what the land was like. I submit to you that God sent them in to see their land and to show them what He was about to give to them. As He had promised to Abraham many years before, now they were on the verge of going into this land that God had promised to them. It was full of milk and honey. It was a place where the people were strong, the people were many, the land was good. There were strongholds and not camps. They were rich and the land was rich and there were forests there. He knew what was there. He wanted to show them what was there. And so He sent these men in. And they came back after 40 days. Look at verse 26. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. They brought back one cluster of grapes, and it took 2 men to carry it on a pole. They saw the land. Look at what they said in verse 27. They told him and said, we went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. This is a land, Lord, just like you said. Just like we've been told for all these years. This land is exactly the way God said. But there's a problem. The cities are big and they're strong. And the men are big and they're strong. So although it's a nice place, Lord, although it's a good place, we're not so sure. And this is where we witness a man who had a different spirit. See, all 12 that went in saw the exact same thing. And all 12 that went in came back with the same report. But we see Caleb, a man of a different spirit, because his spirit was one of prompt obedience. Look at verse 30. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. Caleb said, let's not just go, let's go now. Let's go right now. We've got everything we need. We're here. Why are we waiting? Let's go. Caleb believed God, and he was ready to get on with it. Listen to the phrase. Caleb believed God. You know what? People who believe God and take Him at His word are ready to go now. They're ready to go now. If God said it, it must be true. God showed it to me and I know it's true. Let's go now. Caleb had a different spirit because when God said something, he took him at his word. When God showed him something, he didn't wait anymore. Caleb said, let's go. You know, it takes a different spirit to act when most people will wait or will look for an excuse. Well, I would go, but, Caleb, what do you think? Well, I think you're all right. I believe in everything you said. I agree with everybody here. But, I'll just wait. Caleb said, get out of the way. Load up the wagon. Take your women and children, get them behind us, and let's go. And let's go now. The promise of God was shown to them, and Caleb's spirit would not allow him to delay. Well, what about you and me? Has God shown us goodness? Has He shown us that everything that He has promised us is right in front of us? Has He promised us, oh, well, I have bad times. We all have bad times. You don't know what I've been through. God does. Well, it's easier said than done. Name me something that's not easier said than done. Well, that's, at one time, all of that was true. It's true now. When God says do it, He shows us how to do it. He tells us why to do it. And then He says, what are you going to do? Caleb said, let's go. And let's go now. Caleb's spirit was one of prompt obedience. And Caleb's spirit caused him to obey when others wouldn't do it. You know something? That's what holds us back. Instead of looking forward, we're looking side to side to see if anybody's going to go with us. It's a rough morning. I don't know what's going on this morning, but it's a rough morning. I'll challenge you right now. Look side to side. There's somebody on your right. There's somebody on your left. There's somebody in front of you. There's somebody behind you. Are they going? What difference does that make? When it gets right down to it, what difference does that make as to whether you're going to go or not? You know why they may not be going? It might be because we're not going. Caleb had a different spirit because Caleb was ready to obey even when others wouldn't. Look at verse 31. But the men, Caleb said, let's go. The men who had gone with him said, we're not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. That was true. That was absolutely true. There were giants there. Those were the children of Anak, or the sons of Anak. If you read back through the scriptures, you'll find these were big people. What we would call giants. They were physically imposing. Well, where did they come from? We don't know that. We just know they were there. And I submit to you, they were there for this reason. So that there had to be a decision made. This is not going to be easy. This is going to be hard. But we can do it because of one thing. Because our God is with us. Let's go. They said, we can't go. These men are too big. And they're stronger than we are. Verse 32, they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land, which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. We can't do it. You know something? That's what most people in the world say. We can't do it. We can't do it. We've tried it before and it didn't work. We can't do it. It's too hard. Nobody will help us. We can't do it. We talked last week about a little red hen. She did it. And we can did it too. But we have to. You know, God promises to go with us, but He says you got to go first. I'll go with you, but you got to go. David had to go meet Goliath. Even though God's the one who killed him, David had to be there. He had to be willing and he had to go. 10 of the 12 were afraid of the giants and the danger that the strong cities posed. And the fact of the matter is that most people in those days and now can't see how big our God is. There is nothing bigger than God. There is nothing bigger that our God can't handle. Caleb saw it. That's what made Caleb say, let's go. We're going to have 500 people at Vacation Bible School. That's what they say. They ain't going to get 5. You ain't never going to get 5. That's not with that attitude, we're not. Isn't that right? You can't transform this place into something it's not. We have to come in here and we have to sit on our hands and we have to cry and we have to moan and we have to look somber and we have to not like it to be Christian. That's the kind of attitude that sends people other places. When you and I decide that we're going to go to heaven because God said we could and we're going to prepare ourselves for heaven, we're going to heaven. And there's nobody that can stand in our way but us. Caleb said, you guys get out of the way. You know what holds the church back? People who say the church can't. Let me tell you something. The church can. Can what? Can anything. Absolutely anything. When we follow what God has said for us, when we trust Him, and when we are able and willing to do. Caleb said, let's go. His spirit was different. You know why? Because Caleb was more concerned with what God thought of him than what people thought of him. By the way, he kept on. He wouldn't shut up. And they wanted to stone him. He and Joshua was right there with him. But the rest of them said, we can't do it. And these 10 tried to incite the people. Caleb's spirit also caused him to obey, even when he didn't fully understand. Everything the spies said were true. There were big people there. This was an imposing land. These people weren't going to give up their land freely. They weren't just going to walk away and let the Israelites walk in and take over. It was going to be something that was difficult. It was going to take God's doing. And Caleb never disputed those facts. But look with me in Numbers chapter 14. In Numbers chapter 14, Caleb, we see he has a different spirit because he obeyed when he didn't understand fully how it was going to happen. Look at verse 6. Numbers 14, verse 6. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. Verse 8. If the Lord delights in us, then He will bring us to this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. Caleb didn't give specific reasons why they were going to win these battles and take this land. Caleb said, if the Lord delights in us, He will bring us here. He didn't know how. He knew who. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. We're better off with who than how. We wouldn't understand it if he told us. All we've got to understand is he does tell us what he would have us to do. He didn't know how God would deliver him, but he believed he would. He didn't know all the details, but he believed in the power of God. He says in verse 9, the Lord is with us. And that was enough. That was enough for Caleb to say, let's go now. Well, guess what the people did? You see, most of the time people don't like different. People like things to stay the same. People like the status quo. People like the path of least resistance, and people like to be at ease. They don't want to try any harder than they're trying. They don't want to step out and do anything different. We have a comfort zone around us, and that's where we're going to stay. We're just going to look around and see where everybody else is going, and we're going to follow them, because that's the easy way, because nobody's going to look at me, and nobody's going to question me, and I'm not going to have to explain myself. And that's what they did. The Israelites said, woe is us. That's what they always said. Woe is us. We should have died in Egypt. We should have died already. And now he's leading us to a place where we're going to die. Here's what we need to do. Let's find a new leader and return to Egypt. Numbers 14 and verse 4. Let's find a new leader. Let's get rid of Moses and Aaron, and let's find somebody who'll lead us back into slavery. We would rather go into slavery than follow the God of heaven that brought us out of that and has brought us as far as we are right now. That's what they did. Actually, they chose to do that. They didn't get that far. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, verse 26 of Numbers 14, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation who complain against me? I have heard the complaints which the children of Israel make against me. Let's stop for a second. I'll give you some bonus coverage. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Hadn't you always heard that? Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets replaced. That's what's about to happen. He said, I've heard them complain. I heard them complain. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bow down to them. Nope. I gave them so many chances that I'm tired of this. Say to them, verse 28, as I live, says the Lord, just as you've spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness. All of you who were numbered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above. Except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun, you shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity, until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of days in which you spied out the land, 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. They were standing at the edge of the Jordan, ready to take over the land of Canaan, the land of promise. And they complained to the Lord. They became squeaky wheels. They wanted things their way. They didn't get the grease. They literally got replaced. For 40 years, they wandered in the wilderness until every one of them died who was 20 years old and up. And it was the next generation that Joshua then led into the land of Canaan. Caleb was ready to go, but the crowd wasn't. Caleb was ready to obey, but the crowd wasn't. Caleb's spirit caused him to obey even when he didn't understand, but they wanted to know everything. And if we go over to Joshua chapter 14, we find out one more thing about Caleb. 45 years had gone by. The children of Israel were now in the land of Canaan, and we see Caleb at 85 years old. And Caleb was in a place where he was ready to take over the city of Hebron. But Hebron was a city that was fortified, and a city also that was up on a mountain, and a city that was guarded, if you will, by giants. In verse 10, Caleb says this, "And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, ever since the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, here I am this day, 85 years old. As yet I am strong this day, as on the day that Moses sent me. Just as my strength was then, so now is my strength for war, both for going out and for coming in. Now, therefore," verse 12, "give me this mountain of which the Lord spoke in that day. For you heard in that day how the Anakim were there, and that cities were great and fortified. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said." Caleb's 85 years old. And Caleb said, "I don't want the easy path. Give me that mountain where the giants are." Caleb had a different spirit. It caused him to step up and accept the challenges of life. Most folks look for the easy path. Most folks give in to fear. So many folks will shrink from hard work. Caleb said, "I want that one. I want that city. That one that's hard to get to. That one that will be hard to take. That one where the giants live. That's the one I want." You know, following the Lord is not easy, and those who shrink will never enter heaven. Those who shrink from hard work, those who shrink when they're so fearful. Scripture teaches us in Revelation 21 and verse 8 that the cowardly have their part in the lake that is filled with fire. Our God is bigger than any challenge set before us. And if we will follow Him, we will live with Him. But if we won't, and we give in to our fears, or we give in to what everybody else wants to do, we're going to miss out on the reward that God has promised to us. Caleb received a great compliment from the Lord. He had a different spirit. I want to ask you this morning, could that be said about us? In the world around us, is our spirit different? Will we follow the Lord regardless of what it costs or where it leads? Will we follow the Lord when it's not easy? Will we follow the Lord when most people won't? You see, Scripture teaches us, unfortunately, most people aren't going to make it to heaven. They're going to see what's in front of them, and they're going to choose another path. They're going to see what the Lord has to say, and they're going to choose another path. Only 2 spies made it. Only 2 of the spies made it into the promised land. Everybody else who was 20 years old and up died in the wilderness. It's not easy to get where we want to go. It takes a different spirit. It takes a spirit of courageous obedience. It takes a spirit of complete trust in the Father. It takes a spirit of fearless perseverance. Once we start, we can't quit. But fortunately, once we start on the road to heaven, we're going to realize very quickly this is the road we need to be on. This is the road we should have always been on. This is the road that's going to take us where we need to go. The only way is the way of Caleb. We need to have that different spirit. Steve, why have you yelled at us all day? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you weren't listening. Maybe I want to make sure you heard. I'm pretty sure some of the folks across the road heard. That's all right. That's all right. You know, we need to be different. The world's not going the way that we need to go. We need to step out. We need to have a different spirit. We need for God to say of us, they're different. They're not like the rest of the world. They love me enough to obey me. Even though we're weak and we make mistakes along the way, are we committed to following the Lord? He sent His Son so that you and I would have a model. He sent His Son so that you and I would have the ability to know how we ought to live. Do you need to come to Jesus today? Is today the day you need to commit your life or to recommit your life? The good news is Jesus invites you today to come to Him. Whatever you may need, we can help you with those needs. Won't you come as together we stand?